Hi, my name is Brooke Dixon, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about best practices based off the videos that we watched for the class. I'm going to start off by reading the names of the videos. I'm going to be summarizing the videos, giving you 4 to 6 key points from it, and then I'm going to talk to you about how I would use this instructional activity with students with learning disabilities. I decided to do all secondary because I do want to teach middle school, so I feel like that was better for me. And so when doing that, I decided to do pronunciation of multi-symbolic passage words, 6th grade language arts, vocabulary review, 4th grade, and vocabulary instruction, 6th grade, vocabulary review, 8th grade geometry, and 8th grade social studies background knowledge. So those are the 5 that I chose. So in summarizing the first one, the pronunciation one, in the video, what she did is she first showed them a list of words that they were all familiar with. That's the first thing she said. These are all words that you've probably seen before. And she decided to drag her finger under each word, and when doing so, she broke it up into parts, having the students to repeat it after her or do it together aloud. I feel like that was a really good idea. So she went through the word one by one, and she had them sound it out. And then after she broke it up, she had them say it all together. She also defined the word in a quick manner, but not going too close into detail. And I feel like this was really good. I feel like this would be a good idea to use with students with learning disabilities, because there are times when students will become discouraged by not knowing the entire word, so they may become frustrated. And so teaching them how to break it up will build their confidence and also make them better readers. So I feel like when I could also use that in teaching a lesson, because let's say I'm reading with students with learning disabilities and I notice that there are certain words that they're having trouble with. So I could go through the book and I could pick out those key words, and then at the end I could go down the list of each of those words, break it up with them, and then say it aloud all together. So in doing that, the students will know that not to get discouraged while reading, just to take your time, and at the end you can always sound out the words. So whenever they read on their own, they'll be able to go through each word. They'll be able to, if they find a word that's hard to read, just pause at that word and then sound it out, break it up, and then say it all together. So that's how I would use that. The second one, vocabulary review, 4th grade. First, what she's doing is she's going through a list of words again. She's telling them about the words beforehand. And then she tells them a definition, and then had the students show the number that they think it was on the table. So she would go through each word. It was on one side she had a list of words, on the other side she had a definition. So she went through the definitions afterwards, and she would be like, how do you feel when you're on a roller coaster ride? Each word on the left side was numbered, so the students got to look at the list of words, and they on their table put the number on the table so she could see what she thought. And then after she did that, she had them put their hands up all together so everybody in the class could kind of see what they had. And so for her, after that, she went into deeper detail and told the students what word and why it was correct and how that could be used in a sentence. And I thought that this was good because reviewing vocabulary is always a good idea for students with learning disabilities, because they might not have understood a word while reading. So going over it again is always good. Doing it in a fun way as well as guided practice might make them feel more confident in answering the question aloud. So whenever she's going through the words, having them do it in a fun way will be good for them, because they'll be like, okay, I can answer the question too. I'm not being called out. We're all doing this together, and it's guided practice, so I don't feel a lot of pressure when answering the questions. I think that this is good. Like if I'm to use this, let's say I had a test on vocabulary and I see that one of my students with learning disabilities, or just students in general, were really struggling on this word, I could put it up on the board and go over this all together at the end, or even doing this before a test. So let's say we have a vocabulary test going on, we can do a review in this fun way to make sure my students will understand what's going on. And I think another thing about that is that it will let me see as a teacher what words I need to go over beforehand before taking the test, because you don't want to know that my students aren't doing well in this concept and then take the test and then they did bad on that. It's always good to go over it beforehand. The next one, vocabulary instruction. This is 6th grade. When going over words, having them read the definition aloud. So beforehand, she put a word on the board, they read the definition aloud, and then she gave them examples on how they would be used. She also gave students a specific example and put them in situations using real world situations to help them relate to the students. So she was, I think the word was elude, and that is whenever you try to get away from a situation, try to avoid a situation. So what she was doing is she was saying, if I'm in the hallway, I see somebody I don't want to talk to, I go down a different hallway. Did I elude the situation? Yes or no? And then having them answer that would be like, okay, maybe I've done that before in a situation when I saw a teacher I didn't want to see or a person I didn't want to see, I eluded them. So putting in a real world situation is really good and helps them understand what something means. And so she also had them in pairs. She had the students talk about what they thought using it in a book. So apparently she had read a book beforehand, or a book that they all knew. And so or a situation, I think it was talking about Harriet Tubman actually. And so she had the students talk about a time where Harriet Tubman eluded something. And I think they said they eluded like maybe people who were trying to get the slaves, or eluded hound dogs when they were chasing them. So using that with the book is really good as well. Spent a good amount of time on the word. So it wasn't a rush situation. It was something that she spent a lot of time on. She defined it. She used real world situations. She had them talk about it in pairs. So they collaborated, and that's always a good thing. And depending on how she had them paired, she might have had them with the higher level, with the lower level, so they could work together. And so I thought this would be a great way to teach students, because it breaks down each term all the way down. So it's not just talking about the word and moving on. She broke it down in each way so they could really understand what's going on. This teaches the word, what the word means, and how it is used in a sentence. This will be great for them when it comes to strengthening their understanding. So spending a good amount of time on that does too. And that's always good. Like how I use this in the classroom is kind of how I've been saying, like we have a vocabulary test coming up, a situation coming up where I feel like my students need to learn something deeper. I can do that, exactly what she did. I feel like that's something that will do good with learning disabilities. It doesn't really need to be discussed any further than what she did. I feel like the way she handled it was really well, and I could see myself doing something like that in my classroom. I like how she did that. In vocabulary review, 8th grade geometry, I chose to do this one because I'm not the strongest in math, and I know if I do teach certain classes like a resource class, I might have to teach math. And so there's certain words or terms that are used in the math setting that students need to understand before they actually continue to take the steps with the math problem. So the way she did it was she had them draw a circle. That was the first thing they did. The word that they were talking about was circle. So she had them draw a circle, define what a circle was, and then within pairs, that's that collaborating again, explain it to your partner using the image on paper. So she was like, explain to your partner exactly what a circle is using your image. So that gives them a way to be like, they can explain it. And they always say whenever students explain things that it sticks with them better, because they're having to teach someone else that also teaches themselves. Each group knew who was the one and who was the two. I made note of that because she said ones explain to twos how that is. And I thought that was good, because it's not like explaining back and forth, taking a lot of time because two people are explaining. It was one person within the group explaining this one. So I think the next one was radio. So she had the twos explain that. So each student knew their place. They knew what number they were. So when she said ones explain, the ones all explain to the twos. And later on, twos explain to the one. So I thought that was a really neat idea, because having everybody explain to everybody can kind of get chaotic at times. So breaking it up was good. And then I also noted her positive feedback, but she did this the entire time through all her videos. She had a lot of positive feedback. She would say excellent, perfect. I like how you did that. I heard this particular student do that, and that makes that student probably feel prideful in what they did, and they'll be like, oh, okay, like she recognized me. That means I did something good. That might encourage them to continue to answer questions. And this is great for students with learning disabilities, because a lot of students struggle with math, and breaking down the vocabulary words and then having them draw the image is very helpful, because that appeals to kinesthetic learners. That drawing, that hands-on appeals to kinesthetic learners, and will have them feel more comfortable when dealing with the words. So the way I could use that with students with learning disabilities on a deeper way than just that would be, let's say I see they're struggling on a certain test. Let's say I'm a resource teacher, my students are struggling with a certain test. They come to me, they're struggling with this in geometry or any other math setting, and I'm like, okay, this is a particular thing that you're struggling with. Let me take that term, let me define it for you, let me break it down. I can do it as an entire class. I can do it in small groups, pull them aside, the ones who are struggling with that if others aren't. So just doing it in that way would help them understand, and then they'll be able to build upon it. Because sometimes I know in the regular classroom setting, teachers just kind of go through and don't take into account that there's some students who might not even know what you're talking about from the beginning on what that is. So defining that object, defining that geometric shape or figure would be really good, because you can build upon that, and then taking it step by step would help the student out with learning disabilities a lot. Or honestly, this is all can just help all students out in general, to be honest. And the last one was 8th grade social studies background knowledge. So in this particular portion, she discussed the Great Depression, and she talked about the word depressed. I really liked how with that she asked the students to show me what feeling depressed would be like, and they showed her, and showed what being happy would be like, and they showed her. That shows that they know how to relate it to themselves, and if they don't, they can look at their peers and their classmates to see what that would look like and how that may feel. And so whenever you talk about what being depressed feels like and why that word draws into the time period of the Great Depression, it makes sense, because they're able to see, okay, if I feel depressed, it makes me kind of feel sad, so the Great Depression may be something that's sad, and then that might help them better understand what all is going on. And she had them write down the word and bullet points with it. So having them write down is that hands-on, that kinesthetic thing again, because they're able to write it down and not just listen or see what's going on. And she showed images to help them better understand the time period. I like the fact that she showed images, because I mean, Great Depression was a long time ago. None of us were around during that time period that I know of. So I feel like doing that helps them see visuals, and there are a lot of students with learning disabilities, or students in general, who are visual learners. So showing them those images will help them better understand what time period this is. And I think all the pictures are in black and white, and automatically our brains kind of associate a long time ago with black and white. So seeing that helps them out a lot, and a lot of them have words within it too, so they're able to kind of make those context clues. This is great for students with learning disabilities, because they are incorporating other classes into the English classroom. Oftentimes students view those classes as hard, but once you break it down and try to understand the vocabulary, that will be very helpful. So the way she broke down the Great Depression, the term depressed, let's define depressed, and that's related back to the Great Depression. If you just do certain things like that with each course, each subject, that's always going to be helpful. And so I just feel like if I notice let's say I teach social studies, let's say there's a certain time period my students are struggling with, and I just don't know why, I can kind of do that same thing, like take it back, help them understand. But at the same time, to just prevent that from even happening in the first place, when I'm teaching a lesson in general, doing that every time, helping them break it down to a specific time period, and help them beforehand so they can go ahead and make that connection before getting too deep. Okay, thank you. Bye.